Game 5.
It's going to be a trickle-down effect.
14 games in total across the NBA, MLB, MLS, and WNBA were postponed Wednesday.
You want to talk about really provoking change. This is an appropriate way to go about it. You haven't seen anything like this in the modern era.
Break the system.
We are scared as black people in America.
We aren't just basketball players.
Everybody was in favor of sending a message in a statement.
Gotta stand for something.
I feel like I should be out there protesting, but I'm here in a bubble.
We are calling for justice for Jacob Blake.
Our focus today cannot be on basketball.
Gotta wake up while we still got a chance, take action.
Welcome to First Take. I'm Roz Goldon-Woode here with Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, Jay Williams. 4 days after 29-year-old Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back by a Kenosha, Wisconsin police officer in front of his 3 young children, the Milwaukee Bucks boycotted their Game 5 playoff matchup against the Orlando Magic on Wednesday. The NBA later announced the remaining games yesterday would be postponed and rescheduled at a later date. Last night, NBA players and coaches held urgent and emotional meetings that will continue into this morning. The NBA Board of Governors and those same NBA players will meet again separately at 11 a.m. Eastern this morning as both sides continue to discuss how to proceed with the playoffs, league sources told our Adrian Wojnarowski and Malika Andrews. Sources also told our Adrian Wojnarowski that during last night's meeting, teams were polled about their preference, and the Lakers and Clippers both voted to end the season, though no final decision has been made. It's quite sobering, guys, that it may not be COVID-19, but rather continued racial injustice and police brutality that might pop this bubble. The 2020 NBA season is in jeopardy again, seemingly more so now than ever. In a powerful showing of solidarity, many other major sports followed suit with boycotts and canceling of games, including the WNBA canceling all 3 games. 3 MLB games were postponed due to team protests, as well as all but 1 MLS game. After Naomi Osaka announced she would not play in Thursday's Western and Southern Open semifinal match in reaction to the shooting of Jacob Blake, the tournament announced it was pausing play several hours later. Together, united, athletes took a stand without actionable change around issues of racial and social injustice and the end to the killing of unarmed black men and women. The games would not go on. Stephen A. Smith, starting with you, what stood out to you most from yesterday's unprecedented day in sports?
The fact that it was unprecedented, that we haven't seen anything like this before, not in our lifetime, where games were actually postponed because the athletes refused to take the court or the field of play. We haven't seen anything like that, and it was definitely profound. It was resonating. I applaud the players for taking this position collectively. Had it been the Milwaukee Bucks by itself, I thought that would have been a disaster because they would have appeared a bit fragmented and not unified. And that would have been a huge, huge mistake as far as I'm concerned. But the fact that they came together and 3 of those games were canceled, all 6 teams refused to play. The anticipation is that there will not be any games tonight. As a matter of fact, I just got off the phone with a source about literally 10 minutes ago. I am told there won't be any games tonight as well. So we'll see what happens with that. But the fact that the players were willing to take that position, I stand with them. My point is that you also have to take everything into consideration about what's transpiring. And we have to remind the audience out there why the players elected to take this position. It's not just that Jacob Blake got shot in the back 7 times. It's not just that Walter Scott got shot in the back 8 times. It's not just that George Floyd had a knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. In the last 2.5 minutes, he was non-responsive. It's not because of just things like that, even though they're fatal and egregious and disgusting, and we get that. It's also a level of exhaustion that is kicked in when it comes to African Americans, in particular African American men, because of the kind of things that we've seen transpire and the target that appears to be on our backs, and the fact that white America has stood idly by and has not put forth a concerted effort nearly as soon as they should have to address this situation and alleviate these concerns. Instead, black men in particular have been demonized. We've been stereotyped. it's literally to a point where we've been treated like animals in the eyes of a lot of black folks throughout this nation, if not all of us. And what has to be taken into consideration more than anything else is that you have black men that come from these communities where it's one of those situations where you're trying to give a voice to the voiceless. We know black women are suffering as well. Black people are suffering. And most folks don't have a voice. And so as a result, they reach out to those from the black community who do. You know, when Trayvon Martin got shot, it's not a sports story, but I couldn't walk a block anywhere in America where black people were and not hear black people say to me, Stephen A., you got to say something. You got to say this. You got to say that. Well, imagine what the players are having to be subjected to and what they're having to go through. So this level of exhaustion, this level of frustration, the fact that we repeatedly find ourselves encountering these challenges have elevated a level of frustration, of ire, of disgust, and basically being fed up and saying, it's not going to happen anymore. We're not going to take it anymore. And it's almost to the point where it's like the players are saying, if we got to go down, y'all are coming down with us. Y'all are going, as a saying that I use sometimes, I will not go to hell alone. Nobody's going to sit up there causing me hell while living the high life, acting like things are so heavenly. The players are saying, the hell with that. We have to endure this. We have to feel this pinch. The culprits, whoever they may be, are going to feel this as well, come hell or high water. That's what's going on right now, and that's why you're seeing them take the positions that they're taking. And that's why nobody from the black community can even blame them.
My thoughts when I heard that the Bucks weren't going to play last night went right to the 1968 Olympics. Tommy Smith and John Carlos, Stephen A. Against the backdrop of Vietnam. They gave a black power salute at the Olympics. And when you analyze that time in history, Muhammad Ali first changing his name from Cassius Clay to Cassius X because he didn't want to keep his slave name. He converted to Islam, took the name Muhammad Ali. This all happened between Ali won the title in 1964 and announced that he had renounced his legal name right after he won the title against Sonny Liston in 64. And Tommy Smith and John Carlos was 1968. And this happened against the backdrop of civil unrest. And largely a symptom of that or a cause of that was the Vietnam War. And here we have a pandemic as a backdrop. And the reason my mind went right there was that was, to me, the last real inflection point where sports was the inflection point in a pivotal moment of American cultural history. And here we are now. And what makes all of this feel scarier to people of goodwill and socially conscious people is the original civil rights movement of the 1960s and the countercultural revolution, took place after the post-war boom, Second World War post-war boom, after the Eisenhower years and everything. And then we get to the 1960s, and while things were really good for some people, they still hadn't changed a whole lot, certainly not fast enough for others. Of course, I'm talking about African-American people. And what's scarier about this now is this is a revanchist impulse in the entrenched white power base in this country. What do I mean by revanchist? It means they want to take back what they feel they've lost. During the civil rights movement, when Tommy Smith and John Carlos gave the black power salute, people were trying to change things that had always been this way and always been bad. And it seemed as though, I think there's been real change since the 1960s, but certainly on the surface, it seemed as though, and certainly the white mainstream wanted everyone to play nice, as though things really had changed. And in the last 4 years, there's been this revanchist impulse you've seen and tendency you've seen to take it back. So to have this kind of show of defiance and protest from athletes, just as it was in the 60s, only this time, it's not just about we need things to get better, but it's in the face of a group of people who would make it worse. To take back any gains that have been made in the last several decades makes it all the more important now. And I think it's pretty clear that since the civil rights movement, there has not been a social movement in this country more important than what we're seeing now. And it has, if not led by figures in sports, certainly sports figures are among the leading lights of this movement right now.
And Max, to add to that, I don't see us playing basketball. I don't see the players playing. You know, Stephen A., you mentioned when Orlando was the first, when the Milwaukee Bucks were the first team to say, hey, we're not going to play. I don't see how any other team, after that announcement was made, can then go back and just play. You are inevitably fighting for something so much exponentially bigger than yourself that down to LeBron James, guys. You know, and this might sound unfair. This might be too much weight to put on his shoulders, but ultimately, I believe that LBJ was put here on this earth to carry this type of weight. His shoulders are broad enough to carry this weight with the NBA behind him and his brothers. I stand with these guys on not playing. And I say that because as we move forward, and I don't think we're going to have games today either, if you have games after this, you lose the momentum. You lose the purpose. And anybody that wants to combat that by saying, well, you know, we're going to cancel out the NBA as well, then I think you start to see next steps. If the NBA, if LeBron James decide that they don't want to play anymore and they start working with the players from the NFL, I think that's when it really starts to hit people differently. We already know that people out there have a cancel culture towards the NBA, right?